Welcome back, and it is finally time to code the upload and download function. Now, these are also some of the crucial options that our backdoor will have. With this, you can download any file that is stored on the target machine, and you can also upload your own files, whether they are scripts, different malware, or basically anything you want to, you can upload on target machine. So we're going to start off with the upload function, and let's do it first inside of our server. We need to add the else if option right here inside of our while true loop, so else if command. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the cd command, and that is we're going to compare the first 6 characters. Whoops. Now, you might be asking, why are we comparing the first 6 characters? Well, the upload word has 6 characters. Therefore, if the beginning of the command equals to upload, let us just write this correctly. So if the beginning of the command equals to upload, that means that we want to upload the file. So we'll create a function called upload file, and that function will upload the file to the target machine, which is called the rest of the command. So from the 7th character and until the end. This basically means if we have a command that looks something like this, upload image.jpg, it will compare these first 6 characters, and if they do match, that means that we want to upload a file, and then it will perform the upload file function onto the rest of the name, which is the name of the file that we want to upload. Remember, we are excluding the empty space because we don't really need it since it is not in the name of our file. Okay, so let's delete this and let's code the upload function. Let's go all the way up, and below the reliable send, we can add our upload function. First define it, upload file, which takes the parameter of the file name. Okay? All we need to do is open that file for reading. So we're going to open the file name, and we're going to open it for reading of bytes. Since in order to transfer the file content, we need to transfer it in bytes. Therefore, we want to read bytes and not just simply read text, as we do usually. After we open the file, we want to send the contents of the file to the backdoor. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, instead of using reliable send, we're going to use the regular send function that comes with socket library. And that is because we don't really want to encode this content that comes from the file as we do in our reliable send. We simply just want to send it straight away as it is read in bytes. So we're going to specify target, which is the target socket descriptor .send, and the thing that we're sending is file.read. Simple as that. And that is the entire upload function. Now we have to code the other part of the function inside of our backdoor. So this is just the part where server sends the file. Now the backdoor has to receive the file. So let's go all the way down, and first of all add the command else if, and if first 6 characters are equal to upload, then we're going to create a function called download_file from the command and then 7th character till the end. Now don't get confused with this download file. If you take a look at it from the perspective of the server, we are uploading a file, but if you take a look at the perspective from the backdoor, we're technically downloading a file from the server that the server is sending. That's why here the function will be called download file, and in the server who is sending the file, the function will be called upload file. Okay? But these two functions combined do the entire process of sending the file from the server to backdoor. Okay? So now we're left to do is we're left to code the actual download file function. Let's do it below this. Let's define it first. So define download file, and it takes the parameter of file name. On our backdoor part, we need to first open the file for writing, and we're opening file name, and we're writing bytes, remember that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set the socket timeout, so we're going to type s.set timeout, to be equal to 1. And the reason why we are setting timeout is so we can define where is the end of the file. I will explain it to you a little bit better once we code the entire function, so let's get straight into the next line. We're going to create a variable called chunk, and this chunk variable will receive 1024 bytes every time, okay? And now, while chunk exists, so while chunk is not equal to none, we're going to write those 1024 bytes inside of the file, so f.write, and in the brackets we specify chunk. After it, we're going to try to receive more chunks, so chunk equals s.receive, and then once again 1024 bytes, and then I'm going to accept socket timeout as e. In that case, we're going to break out of this loop, and at the end I'm going to set the timeout back to none, so it doesn't exist anymore. And let's not forget to close the actual file. Okay, so let's explain this function line by line. We first of all open the file for reading. So we are creating a new file and we are receiving the data and writing it in bytes inside of that file. The reason why we set this socket timeout is so we can accept and break out of this loop if needed. If we don't have the timeout, it will infinitely try to receive 1024 bytes and it will never stop. Once it reaches the end of the file, it will try to receive 1024 more bytes, but it will not manage to because the entire file has been sent. Therefore, it will hang right here. That is why we implement this timeout function. Once it reaches to the end of the file, it will try to receive more 1024 bytes, but it will not manage, and after 1 second, it will break out of the loop, which will indicate that the file has been finished downloading. Then we will set the timeout back to none, so it doesn't present us the problem with other commands right here that require socket object, and then we close the file. Okay? Now, let's see whether this will work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the terminal right here where we're going to run our server, and I'm going to transfer the backdoor to my Windows 10 machine. Then I'm going to compile this backdoor right here, and then we will see whether I can upload the file from the server to this Windows 10 machine. Okay, so let's do it. I will plug in my USB drive. Okay, so it has already been plugged in. And then what I can do, I can type ls and copy backdoor.py to media, root, and then the USB drive. Once it is copied, I can unplug my USB drive right here. Go to my USB drive, paste the backdoor right here onto the desktop, and then open up the command prompt, navigate to the directory where the backdoor is, which in my case is the desktop directory, so I will go to desktop. And before we actually try to compile this program, we need to make sure that we have all the libraries needed. So let's go to Kali Linux and check out which libraries does this program have. It has the subprocess, the socket, the JSON, and the OS library. I believe these are all standard libraries, so there is nothing really for us to install at the moment, so we can simply just compile the program right away. Type in the command pyinstaller backdoor.py --one file --no console. Press here enter. The compilation has finished, as it says right here, completed successfully. And now, if I go back to my Kali Linux and run the server, so I will run server.py, it will listen for the incoming connections. I will go to my dist directory right here, and I will run backdoor. Now, if you get this error right here, failed to execute script backdoor, that can mean two different things. Either you are missing a library or you have some syntax error inside of your code. So let's go and check it out. If I go back to my Kali Linux, we can leave the server running. It really doesn't matter since the problem is not in server but in backdoor. Let us check out whether we imported all of the libraries that we might need. So we used socket, we have socket, we have the OS library, we have the JSON library. Let's check out inside of our command prompt whether we need to install some of them. So if we try to install JSON, for example, it will give us an error, which means that the JSON library is a standard library. If we try to install subprocess, it should also give us an error because that is also a standard library. Oops, we want to pip3 install subprocess. Yes, we have all the libraries, so let's see whether we have some error inside of our code. Well, the first thing that we notice is that we're actually trying to connect to the localhost IP address. Instead, we want to try to connect to the Kali Linux IP address. So let's go to our terminal, type ifconfig. The IP address of Kali Linux is 192.168.1.4. I will copy and paste it instead of the localhost IP address. The reason why we cannot use the local host is because right now we are running the programs on two different machines, therefore it cannot really connect to the local host if we are hosting the server on a different machine. We also need to change the IP address inside of our server, so therefore we need to close this connection, exit the terminal, let's go all the way down where the IP address is and then paste it right here, so that the server can bind the local IP address of Kali Linux with the port 5555. Okay? So everything seems to be good right now. If I go and plug in my USB drive once again, we open it up. Then we copy the backdoor once again, so cp backdoor.py to the USB drive. Unplug the USB drive. Let's paste the changed backdoor. So go to your USB drive, find the backdoor file which you just transferred to your USB drive, copy it to the desktop, and run the same command that we ran previously, which will compile our backdoor. So pinstaller backdoor --1 file --no console. While it is compiling, let's go to our server and run it. So open up your terminal and type python3 server.py. It will listen for the incoming connections, but right now it will listen it on the IP address of 192.168.1.4. This has finished compiling. Let's go to the dist directory and execute backdoor. We seem to not get any error right now, which means our backdoor executed successfully. Let's go to our Kali Linux and see whether we received the connection, and we did manage to receive the connection. We can see that the connection is coming from the 192.168.1.2 from the port 63551. If I try to execute some of the commands, who am I? It will give me the output that we are Windows 10 machine right here. If I type dir, the dir command will give us the output of all of the files in that current working directory. Since we are in the dist directory, which is in the desktop directory, we only have one file, which is our backdoor.exe. But what we really want to test right now is our upload function. Right now, inside of my directory, inside of my backdoor project, I have an image.jpg. Let's see whether we can actually transfer this image onto Windows 10 machine. If we notice, this directory is empty, it only has this backdoor file, and right now if I type upload image.jpg, I don't need to specify path since this is in the same directory as our server. Click on enter. Let's see whether we can execute the commands right after it, and we can. And if we go to this directory right here, we have image file inside of it. So let's open it up. And we get the exact same image that we uploaded from our Kali Linux machine. Wow, this is cool, right? We managed to code the function that will upload any type of file to the target machine. Whether it is a text file, whether it is a JPEG, a PNG, an EXE, it doesn't matter. All of those files should work if you try to upload them. Great. So our upload function works. Let's also see whether we quit the program successfully once we type quit. We do, the program closes successfully, and in the next video we can see how we can do the exact same thing, just opposite, so we can actually download the files from the target machine. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and I will see you in the next lecture. Bye! Welcome back. Let's create the download function. So in the previous video we created the upload function and we added both parts of the code into the backdoor and the server. Now we have to do the same for the download. But if we think a little bit about it, the download function is rather the same as upload function, it's just reverse. The part of the code that we coded for the upload function and we placed in server should now go to the backdoor, and the part of the code that we coded in the backdoor should now go to the server. But let's start off with initiating the else if statement inside of our server. So else if, the command, and then first 8 characters, because that is how many letters download word has, equals to download. Then what we want to do is we want to perform the download function. So download file from the command and then 9th character till the end. Okay, so let's code the download function right here. If I go, I can code it right below the upload file. So download file takes the file name as parameter, and what we can do, we can go to our backdoor and copy the download file function straight out of our backdoor. So Control C and then paste it right here. Of course, there are a few things that we need to change, such as, for example, instead of s.setTimeout, we need to specify target.setTimeout, here also target, and here also target. And let's not forget, at the end of the function we need to close the timeout, and therefore we need to set the target once again. Okay, so we simply just copied it from the backdoor into our server, and now we can do the same thing inside of our backdoor. So let's go right here. First of all, add the else if statement. So else if command first 8 letters are equal to download. Then what we can do is we can upload the file. Once again, don't get confused by these two being reverse, because from our backdoor, if the command is download, that means we are uploading the file to the server. Okay? And we're uploading command 9th character till the end. Let's create the upload file function right below here. Def upload file takes file name as parameter, and as we did previously, we can copy it from the server. Let's copy these 2 lines, Control C, and add them into our backdoor. Make sure that we change this target to the S, since the S is the actual socket descriptor inside of our backdoor. And this should pretty much be everything that we should do. Let's test and see whether this works. Let's plug in our USB drive. Open the USB drive. Now we can copy the backdoor to the media/root/USB drive. We already know this entire process, so let's plug out our USB drive, and now we can compile the program inside of our Windows 10 environment. So copy the backdoor to the desktop, and right here we can open up our command prompt, go to desktop and run pyinstaller backdoor.py --1 file --no console. Click on enter. Okay, so it's completed successfully. Let's close this, go into our disk directory, copy the backdoor to the desktop, and now we're going to run our backdoor. But before we do that, we want to go and run server first. So Python 3 server.py, listening for the incoming connections. Let's run the backdoor. We don't get any error, so I assume that connection has been established, and it has. So let's run some command just to test and see whether it works. It does work, and now we're going to try to download this image right here. This is an image from Udemy, so we're going to try to download it and get it on Kali Linux. Okay, it is called another image.jpg. Let's go and type the command download another image.jpg. Click enter. It seems to not give any error. Let's run another command to see whether everything worked. And it did. We can execute the commands afterwards. And now let's see whether we have the downloaded image inside of our directory. Here it is. If I double click on it, it will open up inside of my PyCharm. So we successfully downloaded an image from our Windows 10 target machine. Now we have the both upload and download function ready to work, and we can upload files to the target machine and download any file that we want from the target machine. How cool is that? In the next video, we're going to take a look at how we can actually implement a screenshot function and take screenshot of the target's desktop. That one will be excited to do, so I hope I will see you in the next lecture. Bye!